Hello everyone, this is Nemmernan, and today I'll be covering Week 5 of Monotype Premier League 12. So, before we get down to the videos, I would like to address something. I did say last week that I would provide a mid-season video sometime earlier this week. That did not happen due to me not only not getting a guest, but also some things IRL happened that made it a bit difficult for me to get that video out. So, this time for sure, I have a guest secured in Fentropy, and I also will be doing a mid-season video with him, and that should release sometime around Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I don't have an exact time slot for when that will happen, but around those days should be ideal. But with that out of the way, let's take a look at the usage stats. So, yeah, yet another. So as you can see, this is still the singular one bug team that was brought, but we do see a little bit of a shift in the popularity of types. Instead of Dragon just completely dominating, now Steel seems to be the most used type. Granted, it's only by 1, but still. That is a decent amount of Steel. It does seem like we don't have all the weeks though. It does seem like Week 5 isn't like super included in this sheet, but this is different from what we saw last week due to the fact that Week 4 hadn't been updated at the time I looked at that. So, just looking at the shift from just Week 4, it does look like Steel is becoming a lot popular. We did see a lot of Steel last week. And Dark has been on the up and come, getting a very good win rate with 58% out of the 12 games it's been brought. Flying still doing subpar, but maybe that'll change this week, and Water has been doing relatively well as well. And once again, Ground has a very good win rate as well, considering the amount of games it's had. 6 out of 3 is not bad, or 6 out of 9 is not bad, but yeah. And there are still a total of 6 types that have not been used at all whatsoever. Actually, no, we do know that Grass was used. I believe Grass was used last week. I'm not sure why that's not showing up on the sheet, but yeah. That is the current situation. So, because the stat sheet doesn't seem super accurate, I can't really look at it and give some insight. So, due to this fact, I will probably just skip out on doing a stats overview and just jump right into the games this time around. Which is a bit unfortunate because I usually like talking about stats, but I can't really work with inaccurate data as of right now. So let's move on to the replays. So our first game, I believe this is Dieu Amphibien at Dieu Amphibien ult. I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, I think this is Dieu Amphibien versus Qwily. And as we can see, not much has changed. It is a Dragon Mirror, with both teams having a Latias, and Dieu Amphibien opting for a Roaring Moon and a Curum setup, while Qwily is preferring a Como and a Raging Bolt setup, which Raging Bolt has not been that common. I can actually probably look at the stat sheet and show you that it has been very common, but yeah, as you can see, Raging Bolt has been used only 46% of the time, which, considering how much people talk about this mon, is very shocking, especially at the highest level of play. Our Caledon and Gutra Hisui have been pretty consistent in being, always used, and Dragon Bolt has even been relatively well used as well. The fact that Raging Bolt, which is cause for controversy for some people, is being used less than Latias in the total Dragon games is really says something about the power of Raging Bolt. Maybe it's potentially overrated. We'll find out in the mid-season video when I talk to Fentropy. But yeah, regardless, this is not as common as you would think it is in MPL 12 specifically. But let's take a look at the game. Latias lead by Dieu Amphibien as we see Qwily send out our Caledon. Curum is instantly sent out expecting a switch as the Spec Draco Meteor lands on Gudra, doing a big chunk of damage. Assuming Gudra now forced to swap as Stealth Rock is now up. Curum comes in to respond to the Arcalodon also getting his rocks up, and Gudra cannot take another Draco Meteor, and now falls And just like that, Qwily Hisuian Gudra is gone, which is bad for this matchup. As we do see Dragon Ball get the revenge KO on Kyurem, as Dieu Amphibien did not particularly know which set Qwily would be, so it was definitely a 50-50 of whether or not it was Dragon Darts or Draco Meteor, which is why he didn't choose to go into either of his steals. Regardless, we do see a missed Draco Meteor from Qwilyn's Archaludon, which is going to be very brutal. Excuse me, as that could have been a 2-hit KO. So we see Dieu Amphibien retaliate with a body press that only does about half of Qwilyn's Archaludon's health, as Qwily does win the speed tie multiple times, or I don't think it may not have been speed tie, maybe it actually is invested in speed, to specifically outspeed most common Archaludon sets. Very possible, but regardless, Dieu Amphibien puts in his Dragon Bolt, and Qwily is forced to sack his Raging Ult, as Latias on Qwilyn's side now comes out. Como gets doubled in, as we do see Dieu Amphibien get baited and put in his Hisuian Gudra. Como obviously beats Hisuian Gudra, so Qwily is going to go for a close combat, which gets rid of Roaring Moon. And now with Roaring Moon gone, Life Orb confirmed on the Como. That's actually not something we've seen a lot of, as we see Dragon Ball get the revenge KO with Draco Meteor. Latias is now coming in. Will Latias be able to do enough? Latias used Draco Meteor, and it did not do any ton of damage to Hisuian Gudra, as we do see Hisuian Gudra go for the Dragon Tail and force out Archaludon. Latias now heal wishing and putting Archaludon in with full HP. Seems like Qwily is hoping that Archaludon is able to solo Dieu's entire team, which may be a bit unlikely, as we do see Archaludon lose its leftovers here. Now without those leftovers, it's going to be a lot easier to wear down, as we do see another knockoff come through. We do know that Dieu Amphibien has Draco Meteor on his Dragon Bolt, so it's a question of whether or not Archaludon is able to survive that Draco Meteor, or if Dieu Amphibien misses. Dieu Amphibien not taking any chances and instead going for the Shadow Ball, which is probably the correct play, as now Latias is very easily able to get the revenge KO with Mist Ball. Yeah, instead of leaving things up to chance, we went for the more safe guaranteed play, which is definitely the correct thing to do in a situation like this where you have a tournament game on the line. So yeah, well played Dieu Amphibien. And well played to Qwily as well. A very solid Dragon Mirror match. And it could have gone either way, but fortunately Dieu Amphibien was able to get a better lead situation going, and also just played a lot more aggressively and was able to catch Qwily off guard. So, well played to him. Let's move on to the next match. For 1 versus Qwily, we have Qwily bringing a Dark Team, relatively standard with Weavile. This is potentially the, because I believe this is the setup that usually had the Battle Bond Greninja, so maybe we'll be seeing that? I'm not sure. But regardless, Furl is also bringing Normal, which is the first time we've seen Normal in this tournament. And relative to normal teams, this is a relatively standard Normal team. Now, I wonder if Furl is going to try and do any Hisuian Zoroark gimmicks, because usually most people don't really go for that. Because it's, one, kind of annoying to play around for the user, because you have to constantly remind yourself that you have the disguise up, and you might be able to, like, potentially trick your opponent with it, and you might actually play wrong, potentially, if your opponent actually gets tricked, and you were not expecting them to be tricked. It's an annoying mon to use for sure. So I'm not sure if Furl's going to actually go for any tricky disguises here, but it would be good if he tried to disguise himself as either Blissey or Braviary, as they are walls and require different responses compared to a regular attacker like Terrapagus or Ursaluna. And Ursaluna is easy to tell if it's a disguise or not, because it'll usually burn itself with Burn Orb. And Terrapagus has to transform first before it can also be disguised, and usually Terrapagus is probably going to lose its Terra Shell anyway and lose HP, which will immediately give away whether or not it's disguised or not. But yeah. And Ditto has to transform, so those are his really two only options to transform into. But yeah, enough about the normal team. The disguise is probably not even going to be relevant in this game, I'm predicting, but yeah. Normal should have a okay matchup, because I've been playing a lot of Normal recently on the ladder. Granted, it's not a team like this, but Normal does have a shockingly decent matchup into a lot of the meta types and not named Dragon. Normal does pretty decently into Dark. The only issue with Dark is that Masskeauuu and Greninja, depending on their sets, can be problematic for the physical wall to deal with, especially if you don't have Toucannon, which is what I ended up using, who is able to at least burn Masskeauuu and be able to potentially one-hit KO it as well. Braviary isn't able to do that, and instead has to just kind of take it. So Masskeauuu is going to be difficult for this team to deal with, but let's see what Froll has in store to prep for that. So, here we go. Terrapagos is led, which is what I usually do as well, and Qwily sends in Masskeauuu immediately. The U-turn coming out. Based off of that damage, I think... Ooh, the Rocky Helmet on Terrapagos. Actually a very interesting use. So, Froll is actually using Defensive Terrapagos. That's his answer to Masskeauuu, and that is definitely a good way to do that. He's putting a lot of his eggs on Hisuian Zoroark, doing a lot of damage, but I think this is definitely the best way to use Terrapagos in a situation like this, as Terrapagos' defensive qualities are actually very, very good. Braviary is now sent out, defogging on the Mandibos as he gets toxic. Ursaluna coming in, and Ursaluna is going to lose its leftovers. It actually doesn't have Burn Orb, so he actually could afford to disguise there. As we do see the bulk up come through, fortunately Greninja is in, so he's forced to swap, but Qwily predicts that and puts in Masskeauuu. Masskeauuu getting a knockoff off, not KOing Blissey, but Blissey will lose their leftovers, which is unfortunate. Interestingly, Blissey's using leftovers and not heavy duty boots. That's very fascinating, but we see Ursaluna come out again, as Blissey does get the Stealth Rock up, and Mandibos uses U-turn into the Masskeauuu. Masskeauuu opting to use Knockoff and removing Braviary's heavy duty boots. Masskeauuu is getting slowly chipped down though, so it is very handy for that to happen. Braviary opting for Roost and swapping out into Blissey, or yeah, that should be Blissey. As we do see a Nasty Plot come out. Focus Blast is used, but fortunately Froll is able to swap into Hisuian Zoroark, but Darkrai does have Dark Pulse and outspeeds it, so it is unable to do anything of note. Focus Blast is able to connect on Qwily's Darkrai, as Froll is opting to risk it all here. The Choice Scarf removal is not ideal, as even though Mandibos will get KO'd for that, Ditto is no longer able to be as big of a threat as it could potentially be to Qwily's team. Fortunately, never mind. Both parties miss their crucial moves, as we do see Qwily land the triple axle this time, and Froll will also land the Focus Blast, KOing the Weavile. Qwily now going to go into Greninja, so Greninja does have Battle Bond, and there we go. And there's a Life Orb as well. Rock Slide is used, but it does not do much damage to Blissey, because Blissey is Blissey. Blissey actually opting for Ice Beam. Is this the Serene Grace set? So we do see Ice Beam come out again against the Tinglu this time around. Blissey will not be able to soft boil due to the taunt, and here comes Masskeauuu. Triple Axle is used, which means that Terrapagos is going to do a lot of damage. Never mind, Terrapagos will not be doing anything as Blissey is able to KO. Interesting set for the Blissey, but yeah, well played to Froll, and Normal gets a W. Like I said, Normal does have a surprisingly decent matchup into Dark, as long as you're able to deal with Masskeauuu properly, because that is typically the mon that is the biggest threat. But Froll was able to find a good check to it, being defensive Terrapagos. Typically, people use Terrapagos as either a setup sweeper or usually like a specs user. But Froll actually went for a defensive setup, which is, I wouldn't say I'm doing that too, but I do find that defensive setups for Terrapagos are actually very, very useful, because its defensive qualities are just way too good to be ignored. Now, I'm a bit cheesy and I tried to use leftovers, but using Rocky Helmet in a situation like this is good because it does allow you to check Masskeauuu as well as a bunch of other physical threats that you might be facing off against, like Fusien Samurai, for example. But yeah, against Masskeauuu, this was definitely the pick. With that being said, though, the Blissey set is a bit interesting because the only time I've seen Ice Beam and Flamethrower used on Blissey is when it was a Serene Grace set, which I haven't seen a ton on the ladder because most people who ladder normal don't usually use that, they just use the standard defensive set, so I'm interested to know if Roll is actually the Serene Grace set, because giving up Natural Cure is kind of insane, but I don't know. We'll see, we'll find out later on, maybe Fentropy will know in a mid-season video. But yeah, well played to Furl, and pretty good, well-built normal team, I will say. This is definitely a normal team that would succeed in a tournament setting, especially against the meta type, so yeah, well done. Now let's move on to the next one, which will be Leafeonlol versus Eternal Spirit. Eternal Spirit is going to opt for a fighting team with Breloom. This is the second time we've seen Breloom. Oh! Both parties are actually opting for fighting teams with Breloom. This is not mono threat. This is actually a real alternative match of mono type. So yeah, no, they have almost the exact same team. Leafeonlol just has Urshifu Rapid Strike, and Eternal Spirit is opting for Sneasler. So if I had to put my money on it, I would probably say the Sneasler team will win because they just have more chance for nonsense to happen. But let's see how this goes. As we see the instant Breloom lead, Bullet Seed instantly being used by Leafeonlol, as Eternal Spirit responds with Iron Hands, who is able to tank all 5 hits as an Ice Punch comes through. Breloom opting to still click Bullet Seed, and now Iron Hands is gone. This is a big kill to get for Leafeonlol, as the Mach Punch from Eternal Spirit will KO the Breloom. Ice Spinner used by Great Tusk, but unable to get the KO, as Eternal Spirit's Breloom, who is not loaded dice, does end up falling short of the amount of bullets he's needed to KO the Great Tusk, as we do see Great Tusk get the KO and Rapid Spin successfully. Leafeonlol's Great Tusk Rapid Spins in front of Eternal Spirit's Great Tusk, who does have Rocky Helmet, and it will probably win this Stealth Rock War. As we do see Leafeonlol try to get a last amount of damage on the Great Tusk. Instantly, ooh, that was actually a well played moment by Leafeonlol, but we're going to see the Iron Family get the Revenge KO on Great Tusk, as the balloon will pop, and Sword Stance will be used by Eternal Spirit. Dire Claw is used, and Iron Family will fall, but will the rest of Eternal Spirit's Bond fall? No, because Aqua Jet is brought on the Urshifu, knocking down Sneasler. Iron Valiant will come in to get the Revenge KO on Urshifu, but it will instead meet Iron Hands, who will take a hefty amount of damage from the Life Orb boosted Moon Blasts, as it now falls in battle. Gallade is now coming out as Eternal Spirit responds with their own Gallade, but unfortunately Psycho Cut into Shadow Sneak just does far too much damage, as we do see the Ice Punch come through. Ice Punch not going to get that freeze, and just like that, Leafeonlol will win this fighting mirror. Yeah, well done by Leafeonlol. The aggressive opener with loaded dice Breloom was definitely a well-played moment by him. And like I said, getting into that Iron Hands early was definitely very crucial, because Iron Hands is one of the bulkier pivots on the fighting type, so if you get rid of that, it's harder for fighting to move around to specific threats and create proper openings for it to unleash its offensive onslaught. So getting rid of that first was definitely well done by him, and he also did a really good play predicting the Rapid Spin and actually choosing to KO himself with Headlong Rush while also getting damage, denying the enemy Rapid Spin. It's actually considerably well played, and a really good aggressive play, so yeah. Not much to note on either team. I do think it is very funny that they both happen to use Breloom, but maybe this is an agreement beforehand, I'm not sure. But that is very funny that Breloom is going to show up a lot on the usage seats once it gets updated. But let's move on to the next match, which will be Shucklegigas versus Losco. So Losco is going to be opting for a standard dark team. This might be the Battle Bond team I mentioned before. And Shucklegigas is opting to use a Hisuian Samurott Spikes balance team featuring a little Mola. We've seen this team before, I believe, as well. I think we saw it last week. And I'm pretty sure this team is pretty decent, but into this matchup, if Masquerada is choice banned, this could be troublesome for Shucklegigas, but it's very likely that it is choice scarf, especially on this team. Pretty sure on this team specifically, Masquerada is the choice scarfer typically, but I could be wrong. Maybe instead it's Darkrai. We'll see. But yeah, let's get this match going. As we do see the lead Toxapex by Shucklegigas into Masquerada from Losco. Masquerada opting to U-turn as Toxapex will get the Toxic onto Ting-Lu. Will we see a taunt from the Ting-Lu? No, we instead see the aggressive Stealth Rock as Primarina comes in on Shucklegigas' side. And an Oko, or not really an Oko, but 82% instantly on the Ting-Lu is a very insane amount of damage. As we definitely know that is Specs now, and this would be Choice Scarf Masquerada damage. So Toxapex is going to be able to switch in on it, which will make this matchup a lot easier. As we do see Black Sludge get removed, but Losco is getting his Mandibuzz put on a timer. Toxapex was looking for another cheeky Toxic, but unfortunately he will not get it. Maybe he will get it this turn though, as we do see Losco swap into Greninja, and Greninja will get Toxic. Shucklegigas getting a lot of value out of his Toxapex, as we do see the Dark Pulse come out. Yes, it is the Battle Bond Greninja, as the Dark Pulse does very little into Alomomola. Flip Turn is used, and Toxapex is brought in, as Masquerada will up to U-turn out of the Toxapex and go back into the Battle of Greninja, as we do see the Infestation come out, and Infestation plus the Toxic is going to be brutal for Greninja to deal with, but it looks like Shucklegigas is afraid of the Dark Pulse potential of the Greninja, so we do see Alomomola come out instead. Ice Beam being used and getting a freeze. Fortunately, Alomomola is able to instantly thaw out, so Crisis is averted for Shucklegigas as Greninja now falls. Masquerada now comes back out as Flower Trick is used and does a decent amount of damage to Toxapex. Losco now getting his Masquerada Toxic as Ogerpon Wellspring now comes in. Flower Trick maybe getting the KO. Yeah, it will get the KO on Ogerpon Wellspring. As Walking Wake now comes in. Masquerada will be swapped out for Mandibuzz, who is able to take the Flamethrower relatively easily. Toxapex now coming in, as U-turn is used by the Mandibuzz, and we do see Darkrai come out this time. Darkrai opting for a Dark Pulse, not getting the flinch and getting Toxic in the process, as Shucklegigas' Toxapex is on 21% life. Alomomola will be coming out as a countermeasure to make sure Toxapex doesn't get KO'd, and doesn't have to stay in either, and will recover its HP once per generator, as the Protect stops a Flower Trick from brutally destroying it. Shucklegigas opting to sack his Hisuian Samurott, as Walking Wake will come back out. Weavile coming in to take whatever Walking Wake has to offer, as a 55% HP Dragon Pulse is used. Triple Axle will be used on the Walking Wake, all three hits hitting, but unfortunately will not be enough to KO, as Walking Wake is able to Dragon Pulse a lot of Losco's team down. Mandibuzz getting the U-turn and fortunately KOing, as Darkrai is now brought out again. Will Primarina be able to take whatever Darkrai can offer? Very likely, as we do see Mandibuzz switch swapped in and Moonblast is used. Masquerada coming out again, as Flower Trick will get the KO onto Primarina. Toxapex is too low to switch in due to what happened before. Losco instantly predicting the Protect and putting in Darkrai. The Nasty Plots will come through, and now Toxapex is in a bit of a troublesome situation, as I don't believe they normally run Protect. Alomomola does come out and takes a Dark Pulse. It will be able to use Protect here though, so Losco is going to swap out. As Toxapex is put in, Masquerada opting for the Flower Trick, as Flower Trick will do a lot of damage to Toxapex, but it will not KO crucially, as and Shucklegigas stays in to tank the Flower Trick, as Darkrai is now left at a super low amount of HP. As we do see a Scald come out. Scald, fortunately, not getting it quite into the range it wants, but the follow-up Protect will do enough damage. And just like that, Shucklegigas is able to win. Very well played by Losco, though, playing extremely aggressively, trying not to let the Toxic get to it too much, and trying not to let Water wear him down too much. This is something that would usually defeat a lot of other players, but Losco played very aggressively and played very well around his rocks and removal of Black Sludge to try and wear down Toxapex as much as possible. Unfortunately, due to him not being banned, it's still too hard for him to break through Toxapex effectively enough before his entire team fell victim to the Toxic Poison and chip damage that the rest of his mons would do. And this was without spikes, mind you, so yeah. Imagine what would happen if Shucklegigas was able to get up spikes. This would have been a brutal match. But fortunately, Losco did play very well. Unfortunately, Shucklegigas' team is just too strong for him to deal with. And just like that, Shucklegigas will take a W. Yeah, not many comments to make. The pre-burrito damage is insane. Was not expecting it to kill Tinglu from that HP, because a lot of other things failed to KO Tinglu at that HP. But not pre-burrito, apparently. But yeah, with that being said, let's move on to the next match. As we see Kev versus our future guest, Fentropy. Kev opting for double water fairy, while Fentropy is opting for a ground team. A relatively standard team that we've seen, I think, for most of the tournament. Kev's team does have Clefable, though, which is not something that is normally brought on these fairy teams, so let's see what set is running, because every Clefable set is different. That mon is like a Swiss Army knife of the things that it can do, so I'm excited to see what Kev brought to the table here. Primarina is led, as we do see the instant Clodsire come out. Eject button is used instantly, as the Ice Beam does get a shocking amount of damage on it. As we do see Clefable instantly sacked, and now we have no idea what it was going to do. So, Excadrill is still looking very strong here, as Kev does not have any switching for it. We do see Primarina get another Ice Beam off, but thankfully the Thick Fat on Mamoswine will prevent it from getting into 2-hit KO range, as Mamoswine gets a very powerful Earthquake onto the Iron Valiant, and subsequent Ice Shard will get it KO'd. Fluttermane will come out now and get the KO onto Garchomp. As Fentropy does not have very good switch-ins to Fluttermane either, but one singular pivot from Hippowdon will give Excadrill all the sand turns he needs to potentially close out this game, but I think that Primarina should live. Oh, never mind. That crit will definitely guarantee it will not live. As Klefki now comes out, Reflect will be getting used, and yes, Fentropy is trying to take steps to make sure that Azumarill doesn't just completely sweep his team. As we do see the Azumarill get set up, Poison Jab is used, and it does successfully get the poison, which is very crucial, as now Hippowdon can come out and slowly chip down the Azumarill, who now cannot heal, and now is getting put on a very quick timer. As we do see Clodsire brought back in again, and easily gets the Aqua Jet prediction, and now Azumarill should fall regardless of what it does, and Klefki is a support Pokemon, so it very likely cannot do anything to the rest of Fentropy's team, as we do see the FF. And there we go. Yeah, this was just a brutal display of how powerful Excadrill is, and why it is still one of the most threatening mons in the game, and you should definitely try and prep your best for it. Kev was able to scarily get a Azumarill set up towards the end there, and Azumarill could have potentially ended the game because of how low Hippowdon was and the fact that Garchomp was dead. So yeah, Azumarill was actually poised to win that game had that Poison Jab not poisoned, since the Sand Turns alone would not have been able to get Azumarill KO'd. So that was very fortunate for Fentropy. But yeah, that's it for that match. Fentropy could have also potentially still won, but it would have cost him a lot more, and it would have taken like a lot more prediction as well with his Clodsire. So even if the Poison Jab and Poison Hand happened, Fentropy still had an avenue to win that game, but it was going to be a lot more difficult for sure. But yeah, that's it for the comments on this game. Kev's team was pretty standard, I would say. Double Water Core is pretty strong with Klefki, but unfortunately we have no idea what Clefable was doing, and I really wish I got to see literally anything, but there's just no information. We just know it gets 2-hit KO by Choice Band Escadrille. That's it. So maybe it's an offensive set, maybe it's a defensive set, I don't know. But what I do know is that we are moving on to the next match, which will be Ethereal Sword versus No Name 6293. I have no idea if this is somebody's alt or not, but regardless, Ethereal Sword will be using a fighting team with another Balloon fighting team. And also Keldeo as well. What is going on with the fighting metagame right now? As we do see Keldeo and Breloom on the same team. Very interesting. We don't see any Gallade whatsoever. So maybe it's a Assault Fist Iron Hands. Who knows? But No Name will be bringing a Dark team with Hoopa Unbound. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the initial analysis here. So I don't think that No Name has a very good chance of winning this game, because this is one of Dark's worst matchups, especially because it's Breloom. But I do think that there is a potential avenue to win through Masquerada nonsense, along with good usage of spikes or rocks, and usage of Tingloo in general. So let's just see how this goes. Oh, Finchinator even joined this game. Interesting. As we do see the Mandibuzz lead into Breloom. Breloom getting a Bach Punch off, but Mandibuzz will take it easily as the foul play comes into the respondent Sneasler. Sneasler opting to U-turn out as Mandibuzz opts to switch out as well. Tingloo getting poisoned by the Poison Touch, as we do see a instant Sword Stance used by the Breloom. Now, I know a lot of people who are unfamiliar with Monotype are probably thinking, why did Ethereal Sword not use Spore here? But the reason he didn't use Spore is because Mandibuzz in Monotype almost always uses Overcoat, and Overcoat makes you immune to Spore. So that is why that happened. Ethereal Sword losing Breloom, though, to the Sucker Punch Darkrai. But Mandibuzz is down, which means his main fighting resist is going to be, well, I say fighting resist, but fighting neutrality is now gone, as we do see Tingloo also fall. Greninja is going to opt for the Protean set, as we do see Keldeo fall. And here comes the Iron Hands. Iron Hands is definitely the AV set, because the AV set is what is used with the Volt Switch a lot of the time. So we are going to see Sneasler come back out, but it will U-turn it back into Iron Hands, as Iron Hands will now lose its Assault Vest. The Volt Switch now coming out, as Sneasler will come back out. Darkrai is going to try and get as much chip as possible with its Sucker Punch, as we see Iron Valiant come out now. Greninja is going to come in and get a KO on Iron Valiant, as it is not Focus Sash, so it will fall. Iron Hands coming back out. It's still pretty specially bulky, but not as bulky as it would normally be, as even with the crits, it will not KO with Thunder Punch, and this could be it for Ethereal Sword, as we do see the Great Tusk come out, but Ethereal Sword expertly pivoting back into Sneasler and getting a sneaky KO, as we see the Sneasler get the KO on Great Tusk. Sorry, I don't know why I keep getting mental blocks whenever his name comes up, but yeah, unfortunately Sneasler will perish here. Very close, and very well played by No Name. The Sucker Punch Darkrai tech, unfortunately catching another victim, as Ethereal Sword will fall in this matchup. No Name did play this very well outside of the Sucker Punch tech, Not saying that the Sucker Punch tech is skillless, but it definitely did save him in this matchup, as getting rid of Balloon that early was very good, as it meant that Greninja could play the game, and Greninja was used very effectively this game. No Name sacrificing both of his walls to make sure that Balloon fell, but it was a worthy trade, as Ethereal Sword was unable to switch into Greninja's extra sensories. And this is Choice Scarf extra sensory too. I'm pretty sure it's not even a Choice Specs. But yeah. Because of that, and also the lack of Gallade, Scrafty, or yeah, just the lack of those two, Ethereal Sword just was not able to swap into the extra sensories very well at all. And also, he also lost his Assault Vest, which definitely did not help either. But considering that was the case, it still was a very close match. So well played to both sides, but once again, No Name will be taking the victory, so definitely big well played to him. As we will now move on to the next match. Matt and Mellow 2 versus Aesir Iggy. Aesir Iggy will be opting for a Latios Kyurem Dragon team with Como as well, as Matt and Mellow 2 will be opting for a Gliscor Sandless Ground team, which we have seen once before, but it was definitely not common. So this is, I think, the second time we've seen this archetype before, but yes, I'm interested to see how it will do versus arguably one of the most meta types right now. If I had to guess, I think the Kyurem is definitely going to be a massive problem for Matt and Mellow to deal with, especially since Great Tusk, or not Great Tusk, Iron Treads gets very easily worn down by a lot of the stuff. Fortunately, Stealth Rock won't be that big of an issue for it to deal with, but the rest of the team is going to have, or not really the rest of the team, but Landorus specifically is going to have a lot of issues with it, and Landorus is going to be his tool in getting rid of the steals, as he has some pretty good unwallable power. But yeah, let's just see how this goes. As we see, Iron Treads immediately led, and Aesir Iggy sending out Dragapult. Protect is used to scout out the move, and now Matt and Mellow has a very good information, as he knows that Dragapult is likely going to be a choice item. As we do see Knockoff come through on the Archaludon, and Archaludon will lose its leftovers. Stealth Rock will be used by Aesir Iggy, as he now swaps into Kyurem on the Stealth Rock setup by Matt and Mellow 2. Okay, we now see that Kyurem is Ice Beam, so it is potentially either Specs or a mix set. I think it might be Specs based on the damage it did to Clodsire, but we'll see. As Archaludon now comes in to the Iron Treads Rapid Spin. Archaludon will be getting a defense boost, which is unideal, but we do see Gliscor finally come out and get its Toxic Poison off, and now we might be able to see Gliscor do some Gliscor things. The knockoff coming out, it looks like Matt Mellow was expecting a swap, but that did not happen, as Aesir Iggy stays in and gets a Smedef drop with Flash Cannon, critting the subsequent Quagsire, as now Quagsire clicks Protect, but does not get any information, as Como just comes in for free. Clanking Scale is now used, as Como does lose a bit of his defense, but Gliscor is able to take the hits very relatively. Oh, it doesn't really take the hit very well, but it is able to heal up 24% of his HP. As we do see, Clanging Scale is used yet again by the Como. As are we going to see a swap into Dragapult? No. Instead, opt to use Close Combat. And we do see Landorus come in now. Landorus opting to U-turn, so it looks like Landorus might be a Choice Scarf set instead of a Life Orb. As we now see the Tinglu come in, getting up a Spike, and as I said before, Spikes are the biggest weakness for Dragon to deal with. So we are going to see another Close Combat, but unfortunately without leftovers, I do not think Quagsire will be able to take a subsequent one. Not that it matters, because Como will just use Clanging Scales anyway. As we do see the Landorus come out again. Earth Power is used, but Latios perfectly coming in and taking it for the team, as Flip Turn is used, and we now see the Como come back in to the Tinglu, as we do see a crit Close Combat get the KO on Tinglu, but that's a little less shocking than Primarina's one-hit KO with Boom Blast. As we do see the Earth Power used, and Hisuian Gudra is not able to tank it very well. Hisuian Gudra will be falling, as Latios will come in. Iron Treads is going to swap in, but it will not take a... Well, it actually does take the Ice Beam pretty well, but he does get frozen, which could be brutal. As we do see Como come in. Nope, Instant Thaw, allowing him a second chance at life, as we do see the Protect get used. Vacuum Wave is used, trying to get a cheesy KO, as we see Close Combat get used as well, because Como is indeed faster than most standard Iron Treads sets. Vacuum Wave is going to be used again on the Landers, as Matnello tries to opt for a Rock Slide, but unfortunately will not be enough to KO, as Como will now come in and finish him off with Clanging Scales, and just like that, Dragon will take another W. Unfortunate for Matnello that he did get the one freeze, but it seems that Aesir Iggy was still poised to win this game relatively well due to the mixed Como just doing too much damage and Quagsire just not being able to do enough with the Rocky Helmet. But yeah, not much to comment on this game, so we'll just move on to the next, which will be... What the... I guess I must have had this twice, my bad. But yeah, next match will be Hammy versus Masskeauuu. Hammy opting for a bug team, another bug team, with a Slitherwing, which isn't super uncommon because we saw this a lot in MWP too. We saw a lot of Slitherwing on bug, but yes. I think it's the first time we've seen Slitherwing in MPL, so that is nice. And we are going to be going up against the Steel team, which you would think that bug would have a bad matchup against Steel, but because of how powerful Volcarona and especially Slitherwing are, along with Lokix just being a good general, like, neutral attacker, I think we are going to see a bit of an even matchup in this case. We do have the double Steel Dragon Core though, so it is a bit scary for Volcarona. He will not have an easy time, because now he has to deal with both Heatran and Hisuian Gudra. But it is very possible for them to get the W. So let's just see how this goes. See Araquanid instantly lead into the Skarmory on Masskeauu's side. Infestation instantly used, and this will do a ton of damage to Hisuian Gudra. As we do see the knockoff come through, Heavy Duty Boots will be removed, and Sticky Web is put down. Sticky Web, not going to get a ton of value, but it will slow down Gholdengo, which could be crucial for this fellow right here, Slitherwing, as we do see the Flare Blitz instantly come out, doing a bunch of damage to Skarmory, and now forcing it out, as we see the subsequent Close Combat now get the KO on Hisuian Gudra, so now that is one problem down, as Archaludon now comes in. Volcarona opting to swap into the Archaludon, as Archaludon will use Draco Meteor and not successfully get a KO, as Volcarona is instantly swapped out into the Araquanid, as Araquanid will Liquidation into the Archaludon. Kleavor is now going to come out as a response, as a Thunderbolt is used, and we are now confirming that Archaludon is Choice Scarf, so we actually will get a lot more value out of it this time around. As the Stone Axe will come through and Stealth Rocks will be placed. Iron Treads now coming in, and Hammy does not have a spin blocker, so it will not be easy for him to deal with the Rapid Spin spam. As we see the Rapid Spin come out from Masskeauuu, removing the hazards, as Araquanid will come in and just place the Sticky Web again. Araquanid naturally threatening the Iron Treads, which makes it a lot easier to deal with. As we do see Lokix come out now and threaten out the Gholdengo, getting a free Sword Stance in the process, and likely will get the KO on. Ooh, Skarmory getting taunted instead. As we do see the Leech Life come out, Rocky Helmet will still do a bunch of damage, and the Life Orb recoil will also do a lot. But yeah, we will see Lokix probably fall here. Nope, it does live on 10%, so we will see at least one more shot that it has to give. Should outspeed Archaludon at this point, but he will still opt for the Sucker Punch anyway and get the KO on himself. As the Thunderbolt is revealed, and now we swap into Volcarona, probably getting a free Morning Sun off. As Heatran will stay in, Heatran is going to come out instead, and the Iron Treads will remove the Sticky Web. As close combat, excuse me, comes out from the Caesar. Looks like Caesar might also be choice banned, as we do see the instant swap. Caesar is doubled back in, the knockoff is used, and Metal Coat is revealed, so no, there's not choice banned. I guess choice banned would have actually killed there, my bad. But Bullet Punch is used and does a decent amount of damage to Gholdengo, as Gholdengo will opt for a Shadow Ball, which will KO the Caesar. Volcarona now coming out again and forcing in the Heatran, as we do see Slitherwing come out. Slitherwing now threatening a 50-50 on the Gholdengo and the Heatran, and unfortunately Masskeauuu will lose the 50-50 as we do see the removal of the Gholdengo from the match. Draco Meteor is used, unfortunately critting. That may potentially matter as Arachnoid will fall. Archaeodon, and now we see the Morning Sun from the Slitherwing, as him and Volcarona do actually, in fact, share a move pool, or most of it anyway. I don't think it gets Quiver Dance, but we are going to see the follow-up from Archaeodon. Draco Meteor not getting the KO that it wants, as Heatran comes in. Heatran being slower than most common Slitherwing sets, as now Heatran falls, and Pammy wins the game. And as I said, this matchup is a bit harder for Steel to deal with because of how threatening both Slitherwing and Volcarona are. Slitherwing is immediately threatening, while Volcarona is a late game issue. If you don't manage your Heatran properly, you get swept by Volcarona, and if you predict wrong with your Gholdengo, then Slitherwing just eats your team apart. So yeah, it's a very tough gamble, and that's why Bug is actually still able to do well into the types like Steel and types like Dark. It just has very good threatening Pokemon. It's just a matter of being able to pivot around those Pokemon appropriately and not getting caught off guard, because Bug's disadvantage state is not very great, as it doesn't have, this team particularly doesn't have any hazard removal, and unlike Dragon, it doesn't have a lot of steel, or not really steel, but like neutral damage to the type, as most of Hammy's team is usually weak to Stealth Rock and reliant on heavy duty boots. But yeah, Hammy is able to take the victory here with good play and good predictions. But yeah, well played to Hammy. Let's move on to the next match. Floss is now going up against the DugZa. This is apparently a DugZa. I did not know this, but yes, Floss will be up against DugZa. As we see a Steel team with Caesar up against a relatively standard Flying team. I really hope I'm not going to be here all day, because this is probably going to be a long game. But yeah, we do see the Landorus Therian on the Flying team, which is not typical, but I think this might be the Steel Killer set that I've heard about. Keyword is might be, because I'm not 100% sure if it is, because he does have Corviknight on the team, so I think it might actually not be, and it might be a defensive pivot set instead, or it's a choice Scarfire. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, I have a feeling like this game is going to take over 100 turns, but I could be wrong. Let's just see how it goes and get it out of the way. As we see Archaeodon lead into the Tornadus, instantly getting the Stealth Rock off, as Tornadus will remove Archaeodon's Choice Scarf, which is actually probably exactly what Floss wanted, as the Heat Wave will come through and Flash Cannon will come in and do very little damage to Tornadus. Very likely that Tornadus is Assault Vest, as we do see the U-turn come out and Corviknight come in. Thunderbolt being used by Floss's Archaeodon, as it does a decent amount of damage to the Corviknight, but not enough to threaten it to go a KO. As we see a Defog come out and remove the rocks from the field. Heatran is going to come in, missing its Magma Storm, unfortunately, on Tornadus, but Tornadus could just U-turn out of it anyway, so the trap threat isn't really that real. Missing the damage, however, is, as Tornadus will now get rid of the balloon and remain with at least 80% of his HP. As we do see Landorus take a Magma Storm and actually took a lot of damage from that one. As we do see a Stealth Rock come out, and Scarfire gets doubled into Iron Treads. Iron Treads has to be careful because Igneris could very well have the... Hold on a second. Oh, they're the exact same speed. Okay. I was going to say, like, that's a bit weird. that Iron Treads was able to outspeed. But I guess DugZa or Floss is max speed on his Iron Treads, unless Anemoris is running a really weird set. But yeah, Arcaudon will get the rocks off, as Gholdengo is going to come in and deny the defog with Good as Gold. Nasty Plot being used as Corviknight will opt to U-turn into Tornadus Therian. Tornadus is probably looking to get a Heat Wave off, as it does connect on the Gholdengo and gets a burn, which is pretty nice. Thunder Wave is used on the Tornadus, which will probably be an issue later, as we see the Recover come out from Gholdengo, Toxic Orb procking on Gliscor. Earthquake getting a critical hit. A lot of crazy crits this tournament, as we do see Gholdengo now fall to the burn damage, but it does take Gliscor with it, which is very important, as that is one of the more annoying ones to take down on flying. So getting rid of it now is actually pretty good. As Landorus will also fall, so even if it is the Steel Killer set, that is now completely gone. As DugZa will put in the Anemoris and try to get a Earth Power off, but the substitute from Heatran will take the Earth Power, and now the match is over. So I was wrong. This match did not take nearly as long as I thought it would, but that is only because Floss played incredibly solidly, and a minor blunder by DugZa will unfortunately cost him a lot of the match, as Floss will take the victory. I have no idea what set that Landorus was, but it definitely was not the Steel Killer set I was hearing about, so yeah, it was not that. And I thought as much it wouldn't be because of the presence of Corviknight. Because typically when you use double Bird Steel, or double Iron Bird Steel, you usually are not going to run a Steel, or the Steel Killer set on Landorus. You're going to do something else. Because typically, Corviknight is the one that's the setup sweeper, but Corviknight was actually defensive this game, so I'm actually very curious as to what the Landorus set was in this match. But that's a question for later. What matters now is that Floss was able to win, and did play very solidly to get to this point. So well played by him. I'm still very shocked that he's running max speed on his Iron Treads, because I think that's the only way that Anemoris ever gets outsped there. Or oh wait, I might be missing something. I think he may have had a speed boost beforehand. Let me go back into the replay. I think that may have been when he had a speed boost beforehand. No, that was before it got the speed boost. So yeah, I actually have no idea how this happened. But yeah, that is very crazy that he outsped the Anemoris. Was able to get the speed boost there. I mean, I guess this doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but I'm very shocked that it even outsped it in the first place. But yeah, regardless, this is a very nice match to watch, but we will now move on to the next one, which will be Luisin versus Royal. So Royal is opting for a Roaring Moon Dragon team, while Luisin is opting for a standard Sand Ground team with Great Tusk. I don't know why I have so much mental block trying to say Great Tusk. I don't know. But hopefully that doesn't happen this game with the commentary, because I'm trying my best not to mess that up, but we'll see how this goes. Landorus is instantly led by Luisin as Royal puts out the Fusien Samurott. Oh, Fusien Samurott on Dark is actually not very common. Usually it's more of a mon on water, so it is nice to see it on Dark, as we do see the knockoff from Great Tusk remove the heavy duty boots from Mandibuzz, which is going to be very important. Luisin actually having a bulk up set on the Great Tusk, which will it won't matter for the defensive of the Flower Trick, but it will naturally still survive, as the close combat will get the KO on Meowscarada, and that is going to be massive, as now Meowscarada cannot be a threat for the rest of the game with its grass and ice coverage. So Roaring Moon is now going to come in and remove Hippowdon's eject button, sadly not giving the pivot that Luisin probably wanted. But Stealth Rock is going to come out from the Hippowdon and pose a problem for this Dark team, as now the Dark team is going to be on a bit of a timer, as without Meowscarada it is going to struggle to break some of these mons. Excadrill coming out in the sand to threaten the entire team, as we do see the Earthquake come out, but Mandibuzz is going to take the Earthquake and take 0 damage. As we do see the Toxic come out and get onto Mamoswine, slowly chipping it down as Hisuian Samurott does come back in on the side of Royal. Heavy Duty Boots being revealed on the Hisuian Samurott as we do see the Sucker Punch come out. Ice Shard being used to get the KO. As this Hisuian Samurott will only get a singular spike this match. Knockoff by the Hoopa Unbound will get the KO on Mamoswine as Landorus will come out. Tigblue coming in as the U-turn reveals that it is potentially Choice Scarf. Hippowdon coming in to set the sand, and looks like it is going to be an Excadrill sweep. Oh no, Hippowdon instead opted to heal itself with Slack Off, as Tingblue will get the Stealth Rock off and swap into Mandibuzz. Earthquake once again doing 0 damage into the Mandibuzz, as we see Clodsire come in. Clodsire probably looking to get a Toxic on the Mandibuzz to remove it from the game slowly, as without Heavy Duty Boost and with all the other things going on, it would probably be tough to deal with, but we do see Mandibuzz U-turn and outspeed to Clodsire. Poison Jab actually being used instead, as Hoopa Unbound will look to pose a threat to Luisin's team, with the Psychic Noise coming in and also disabling the Hippowdon from being able to use Slack Off if it even wanted to, but it will probably not because Hoopa outspeeds it anyway, so that didn't really matter that much, but yeah. Excadrill will come out, and Sandov cannot come back after 3 turns, so we are going to see Excadrill Rapid Spin into the Tinglu, taking some Rocky Helmet damage, which is probably unideal, as Tinglu can now just... Oh, Tinglu instead opting for the Ruination instead of putting the Stealth Rock back down, as we do see U-turn used, and the Rocky Helmet just getting a ton of value this game. Ruination being used yet again, as we see Mandibuzz come in, probably looking to block an Earthquake, but unfortunately he will opt for Iron Head this time around, and Iron Head will get the KO as Roaring Moon now comes out. Roaring Moon is going to be able to outspeed Excadrill, as now we see the Clodsire come out. Clodsire will lose its Black Sludge, but Recover will be used instantly by Luisin, and that should keep it healthy for the subsequent knockoffs. So Toxic is used, and Tinglu will be KO'd, as Hoopa Unbound now comes out. Psychic Noise going to KO Landorus anyway, so swapping out is really pointless, as we now see Roaring Moon, and Clodsire cannot heal this turn, so it is going to get to a KO regardless, as we do see Roaring Moon get the 2 subsequent KOs and finishes off Luisin's Dark Team. Very well played by Royal. Royal was actually in a very hard spot due to him losing his Meowscarada very early, but fortunately he played well enough to make sure that he was able to stay in the game. Very good usage of hazards this game, and also good usage of the Rocky Helmet on the Tinglu, constantly using it against the Landorus and Excadrill to slowly wear them down while removing the Hippowdon from the equation. Psychic Noise also just doing a lot of work as well, especially towards the end game, where it prevented Clodsire from being able to do any nonsense. But yeah, just very, very solidly played by Royal considering the spot he was put in, but it was also just solidly played all around. So yeah, well done to Royal. Let's move on to the next match, as we see Scarfire versus Chaitanya. Scarfire opting for a Rain team with Kingdra and Swampert, while Chaitanya is opting for a relatively... Ooh, a double Lottie team. This is a first for the tournament, and I think it's a first for this competitive season as well, because I don't think we saw this in MWP, so this is definitely going to be very interesting to see. And yeah, if you're wondering, for those of you who are unfamiliar, there is no species clause with Latios or Latios. You can use them on the same team, but typically you don't do that because you're doubling up on the same weakness, and also they generally do kind of the same-ish thing, but you know, obviously they're 2 very different mons, but they kind of just, using them together is usually like not great. But maybe Chaitanya has some very, very special sauce that he's going to showcase this game against this Rain team, which Rain does typically struggle into Dragon, but this Dragon team does not have Raging Bolt, so maybe Scarfire will have an easier time dropping Dracos on the entire team with his Kingdra, but he has to be in the position in order to do that, or they have to be in the position to be able to do that, so let's just wait and see how this goes. Kyurem will come out as Pelipper gets the drizzle. Kyurem is going to substitute, and this is going to be a really rough time for Scarfire, as now, yep, Kyurem has Freeze Dry, and Scarfire's entire team is going to be weak to that. Ogerpon is going to get KO'd by this regardless of what happens, as we do see the Ivy Cudgel come out. Is Chaitanya going to Chaitanya is going to try and stall out the rain turds, so that, oh, never mind, he's not doing that. Actually, he did stall out the rain turns relatively well already, so yeah, Kyurem will end up taking a fat Sacred Sword, and he will tank it pretty well, as the rain now ends. Pelipper is going to come back out, but he will probably have to swap out immediately. Nope, Scarfire will up to sack the Pelipper, and Kyurem is going to look to stall out the Kingdra for as long as possible. Kingdra is going to be easily stopped with Dragon Pulse by Hisui and Gudra, and that should be GG, because there's nothing that Scarfire can do after the rain goes off. Dragon Tail is used, and Toxapex is going to be dragged in, but Toxapex is just going to swap out into someone else. As Swampert comes back in, Rain forever gone, so Kingdra will no longer be able to boost its speed, as Luster Purge is used by Chaitanya and Latios, getting the special defense drop on Swampert. Stealth Rock will be used by Scarfire, but it will not get much done, as Kingdra will come in and almost get OHKO'd by the Luster Purge, but fortunately he will get a Dragon Pulse that will KO the Latios. As Dragon Bolt will now come in and KO the Kingdra with Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt not doing a ton of damage to Toxapex on the other hand, but fortunately Chaitanya should still be able to just win the match in spite of whatever Toxapex does. So yeah, Chaitanya desperately trying to land a Will-O-Wisp, but Will-O-Wisp is just not cooperating, sadly. Will-O-Wisp looking like Focus Blast right now, but the amount of times that it's missed 3 times in a row is brutal. But now we finally get the Will-O-Wisp, as Toxapex is going to try and use a recover. Latios is now coming in, and let's see what Latios is doing. Latios definitely an offensive set, with that Psychic doing a ton of damage to Toxapex, as Toxapex will now be KO'd, and that will be that. Yeah, Chaitanya's Kyurem set, unfortunately, is just the one thing that Rainwater did not want to see, and once that substitute went up, it was pretty much lights out for Scarfire. They had to do a lot to try and get that W back, and unfortunately they were just not able to do it due to the strength of the Kyurem set and Chaitanya's play in general. So good job to Chaitanya. Good job to Chaitanya, and we will now move on to the next match. There's not really much to note, and it looks like Latios was just another. Looks like they were just both physical or offensive sets, which is interesting, but I'm not sure why Chaitanya chose to do this, which is unusual, because why not have Raging Bolt instead of either Latios or Latios? Why use both of them? Why not use a Walking Wake either? A lot of questions to have about this particular choice in team, but maybe there's a specific threat that I'm not thinking of that he was trying to deal with. Potentially something ground related, I'm not sure. But regardless, let's move on to the next match. As we see ImprobableBlob up against Leafium Z. Leafium Z opting for the fire team with the same 6 mods. And ImprobableBlob will be using a fairy team with double waters and Fluttermane. So Fluttermane is going to get a massive boost in this matchup due to the sun giving it a Pro Synthesis boost for free. However, I'm not sure how much it's going to matter, because I'm pretty sure in order for it to get the actually, I think it might get the boost in special attack, actually, if I'm correct about how stats work in this game. But yeah, regardless, let's just see how this match goes. A Fluttermane will be led into the Ogerpon from Leafium Z. Leafium Z immediately swapping out, not wanting any of the Fluttermane smoke, as Heatran will come in, but fortunately get his special defense lowered, which will pretty much guarantee that the next Shadow Ball will KO it, so Leafium Z has to choose what he wants to do here. Cinderace is going to be sent out as a response, as Shadow Ball will nearly one-hit KO it, ImprobableBlob is going to respect the Sucker Punch, as an Iron Valiant is going to get put in. Volcarona now coming in, as Knockoff is used and removes the heavy-duty boots. Volcarona will use the Morning Sun and heal itself to full. Tail's now coming in, and now the sun is up, so Fluttermane is going to look extra scary now. Nope, it does indeed get the speed boost instead, so yeah, there's that. The speed boost honestly isn't even going to do that much, as Shadow Ball does fail to get the Oko on Ogerpon. And now Leafium Z is likely going to swap the Ogerpon back in and use the Healing Wish. So Knockoff's not going to do much, and yeah, exactly as I said, Ogerpon will take the Healing Wish, and now Primarina is in a big trouble, as Klefki is now going to come out. Power Whip will successfully be taken by the Klefki, as Reflect will be used, and now, with Ninetales gone, Azumarill can become a very big issue for Leafium Z, as we do see the Trick Room come out, and Azumarill will come in. Magma Storm is used and will now trap the Azumarill. But Azumarill likely does want to be trapped, but not sure how well it's going to be able to tank these Heatran attacks, as we do see it live on 3% HP, and Protect is brutally going to stop Azumarill from doing what it wants to do, as it will fall victim to the Magma Storm. Primarina now coming in, as Calm Mind is used. Magma Storm going to be used again to stop it from swapping, but we are not sure if Primarina will be enough to take down the rest of this fire team, as Calm Mind is used twice. Leftovers doing its best to heal Primarina as much as possible, as we do see the Surf get the KO onto Cinderace. Ogerpon Hard Flame is going to come in and just be a big, massive problem. Power Whip will get the KO, as we do see Iron Valiant come out. Sword Stance is used, but Leafium Z just prefers to immediately attack with the Ivy Cudgel, as we do see the Trick Room come out from ImprobableBlob. Psyshock getting a crit, but not enough to KO, as Ogerpon will get the follow-up KO, and that will be it. Yeah, a bit unfortunate for ImprobableBlob, trying his best to get the Azumarill in a good spot to sweep once he got the sun down, but unfortunately he was just not able to get it, as Leafium Z did have Protect on Heatran, which actually, Protect on Heatran isn't that uncommon on fire, but it is definitely something that occasionally isn't brought, so I don't entirely fault ImprobableBlob for thinking that he was going to be able to get away with the greedy Azumarill setup, but unfortunately Leafium Z was prepared. And that'll be that. But yes. Yeah, it does appear that Fluttermane will instead get the speed boost. I forget how the stats work. I thought there was something about stat priority when it came to ties, but oh, actually never mind, I'm silly. I completely forgot that Fluttermane actually does just use the positive speed nature, so it's going to be a higher stat regardless of how much points you put into special attack. So yeah, it was going to be plus speed regardless, which is unfortunate because it's just not useful this match, as there's literally nothing it needs to outspeed besides maybe a +1 Volcarona. And even then, it doesn't really need to outspeed it, but yeah. Let's move on to the next match, as we see Adjustments versus Rio Vidal. Adjustments opting for a Ghost team, with Rio Vidal opting for relatively standard Kyurem and Roaring Moon team. So Adjustments is actually going to be in a relatively decent spot, as he, unlike most other types, is going to have a decent matchup into the double steals. But the big issue is that the Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon can just kind of click knockoff on his entire team, and there's not much you can do about it. So if rocks go up, and Fluttermane, for whatever reason, is not going to be able to... If Fluttermane gets taken down and rocks get up on the enemy team, it will be lights out for Adjustments, but he does have Mimikyu for at least one KO, potential KO, against Rio Vidal's team. So let's just see how this goes. as the Flutter main is immediately led by adjustments, definitely forcing a Hisuian Gudra swap, as Moonblast is used, not doing a ton of damage to Gudra. I think that might not be specs, as we are going to see the Dragon Bolt instantly swap in to the Brambleghast. Brambleghast getting one-hit KO'd by the Shadow Ball, as adjustments does not have any swap into that. Flutter main is brought in and baits in the Hisuian Gudra again, as Archaludon is now brought in. Adjustments looking to get a Dragon Darts on the Archaludon, as Balloon is revealed on Rio Vidal's Archaludon, and he gets 2 stamina boosts, as Dragon Bolt, or sorry, not Dragon Bolt, Spectrier is going to come out. Spectrier going to be doubled out into Dragon Bolt again, as Rio Vidal instead calls his bluff and stays in and uses Draco Meteor, not caring for the potential Spectrier Grimnay boost, possibly because he has the Hisuian Gudra in the back, so he wasn't that worried anyway. The crit will come through on the Hisuian Gudra though, as Shadow Ball does a ton of damage. Knockoff will unfortunately be critting and KOing the Spectrier though, which is very unfortunate for adjustments, as now Flutter main is going to be his only hope. Kyurem is going to come in, and Kyurem will... I think this is Choice Scarf Flutter main, so this is actually going to be very scary for Rio Vidal, because now... Okay, Latias is able to live, and get the Healing Wish off and bring Gudra back to full HP. That is brutal for adjustments, as we do see the knockoff come out. Rocky Helmet actually used on the Mimikyu, as the disguise now gets busted. Archaludon's going to come out, probably going to take the Play Rough, as Play Rough does give the defense boost instead. Saralip's going to come in, take rocks damage. It will have Balloon though, as Balloon will now pop, and Flash Cannon was used. Flutter main is going to come in on a predicted Draco Meteor, as adjustments is going to swap out again and go into Saralej to bait out the Hisuian Gudra. What will adjustments do here? Archaludon is going to come out again, as Bitter Blade is used. Bitter Blade healing it a little bit by giving it a defense boost, as it will... Oh, it does get the 2-hit KO actually, so that's good for adjustments. But Roaring Moon is now going to come out, as Shadow Sneak is going to go through. But because Flutter main is Choice Scarf... Oh, never mind. He's going to opt for instead of putting in the Mimikyu, who is able to take the knockoff relatively well due to it not having an item, so that is actually good. Unfortunately, Dragon Bolt is going to come in, and I don't think adjustments has what it takes to KO the Hisuian Gudra. So yeah, Hisuian Gudra will just use Heavy Slam here, and it will just KO the Flutter main. Very unfortunate that Moonblast just was not enough to KO. Had adjustments been able to get maybe rocks off, it would have been able to get... He would have been able to KO the Latios with the Moonblast, potentially. But unfortunately, that is just not what happened, and he also doesn't have rocks on the Steam. I don't know why I said that, but... Yeah, this is just very sad. Very sad for that the Latios was able to live the Choice Scarf Moonblast. And yeah, this is an example of Choice Scarf Flutter main actually being scary, because I see some people say that Choice Scarf Flutter main is generally useless, because they just prefer specs and they think Flutter main is fast enough. But in a situation like this, with especially on Ghost, where there is a threat like Roaring Moon that you need to outspeed, and you don't really have any other good options for it, Choice Scarf Flutter main is actually probably the best thing you could use. And Flutter main is generally strong enough to get Okos on most stuff that it has super effective coverage on, so it's actually not that bad, and it was definitely good this game, for certain. But unfortunately, Rio Vidal was able to get the Healing Wish off onto the Gudra, so sadly, it was not enough. But still, a very entertaining match, and Ghost is still showing how strong it just can be, especially against meta types. So yeah, well played to Rio Vidal and adjustments, but let's move on to the next match. Alright, we got VK versus Fusien, as we see VK and Fusien opt for a Fire Mirror. This is going to be funny, because it literally looks like they're using the exact same team, but I assure you, there's probably at least 1 or 2 differences on their team. On their individual teams, that is. One of them might be using Balloonless Heatran, one of them might be using Balloon Saralej. One of them could potentially be using a fully defensive Volcarona, or one of them could be using a really weird Ogerpon Heart Flame set. But regardless, let's see how this match goes. Alright, Pyro Ball is used and led with the VK Cinderace, as Fusien will opt for a Scarfire. Sword Stance immediately, as we do see the subsequent Pyro Ball come off. VK is now in big trouble, as Scarfire is now +4 in speed and +2 in attack. Scarfire is going to be using the Poltergeist, which will instantly KO the Heatran, as now VK is in a bit of a tough spot. Endure is going to be used. Okay, oh, this, that Scarfire was not Choice Scarf, or Focus Sash, so actually Fusien, I think Fusien just wants to, yeah. Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Fusien getting two boosts there was actually what probably caused the game to go as poorly as it did for VK, but yeah, yeah, typically in Fire Bears you are usually supposed to lead Scarfire, because Scarfire just does way too much against most of the mons on fire. So Fusien definitely went with the right lead here, and it makes sense that VK didn't want to lead with his, since his was Endure with Weakness Policy instead of Focus Sash, which that is actually not a bad set. It was bad in this matchup, but typically Scarfire is typically gated a lot by its Focus Sash and for being super reliant on it, so using an Endure set with a Weakness Policy actually isn't that bad, especially since it gets weak armor buffs, and it will get particularly fast, especially with Shadow Sneak and a bunch of other stuff. But unfortunately, it was bad in this matchup, because if he had Focus Sash, he would have been able to take care of Fusion's Scarfire. Unfortunate, but that's just how it is sometimes, you know? But yeah, not much else to comment on. Well played to Fusien for knowing to lead Scarfire. But let's move on to the next match. As we see Silent Waltz versus Sificon. Silent Waltz is opting to use a Dragon team with Raging Bolt. Again, not super common. Against Sificon's Water team. So this is going to be very interesting for Sificon, since Sificon has to deal with both the brutal onslaught of Raging Bolt and also the potential setup of Dragonite, which Dragonite is also not common on Dragonite. I keep seeing this thing sneak its way onto some teams, and I don't bring attention to it, but yeah, that mod is not common on Dragon. So it's very interesting that Silent Waltz is bringing it here. It could potentially be a Fat Dragonite set, but I'm not sure for sure what we're going to see here. Sificon does still have very good odds to win this game though, since he does have the Spikes and Hazard Spam, as well as Greninja just being able to use Ice Beam very effectively against the team. He just has to wear down those Steel types, and we've seen it done before, so we should have faith in Sificon to be able to break this Dragon team, but let's see how the match goes. As we see Roaring Moon led into the Urshifu from Sificon. Latios will be put in immediately, as U-Turd will get over half of Latios' HP. Samurott is going to be put in, as Ceaseless Edge will be put down, and so the spike stacking begins. Samurott should be able to get a subsequent KO, but it seems like Samurott is not going to be heavy duty boots, as it looks like it may be a choice set, as Infestation will come through from the Toxapex, forcing Archaludon to stay in, and Toxapex is going to actually do some stuff to Archaludon, since yes, the Draco Meteor will come through. Oh, but the Haze is probably not ideal for Sificon, as the Draco Meteor can now, yeah, the Draco Meteor now KOs the Archaludon, and he is now freed from the Infestation. Hisuian Samurott is going to opt for a Sword Stance, but Body Press will be used. So Body Press not getting the KO on Hisuian Samurott thanks to the previous Haze, as we are going to see Sacred Sword used, but it will go into Dragonite, who is able to take it relatively easily. Dragonite is going to opt for an Extreme Speed, which will do a hefty amount to Ogerpon Wellspring, as we do see the Play Rough from Ogerpon Wellspring come out, but Archaludon is able to take it very easily. Play Rough subsequent is going to miss, as Archaludon is able to get the KO on Body Press, and that Play Rough miss will probably matter, as Archaludon's HP is a very crucial resource for Silent Waltz to manage here. Ice Beam is going to be used into the Goodra, as Goodra is able to easily take it. Shifu Rapid Strike going to come in. As Dragon Tail fails to connect on the Urshifu, which puts Silent Waltz in a bit of a bad spot, as the Ice Spinner is going to get the KO on Dragonite. Raging Bolt now coming in, forcing in a sack from the Sificon as he offers up his Hisuian Samurott. Hisuian Samurott, however, is able to dodge the Draco Meteor, as now Raging Bolt is revealed to not be Specs. Raging Bolt is going to be swapped out for Latias, as Swampert flip turns on the Latias, and Greninja is brought in, forcing in the Hisuian Gudra from Silent Waltz. As we do see the 30% done to it, Sificon is going to play patient and use the Urshifu, as Urshifu does come in. Choice Scarf is going to be removed, which will be problematic for when we need to deal with Roaring Boom later in the game. But Archelodon will be brought in and get subsequently KO'd by the Urshifu. Latias is now going to be here, and Healing Wish is going to be used, probably going to be bringing Hisuian Gudra back to full HP, but Swampert is going to come in. Swampert is going to be able to take the Outrage, and the Choice Scarf will be removed. Unfortunately, though, I believe Sificon may be Choice Specs on the Greninja, so I think he still should get... Oh, no, never mind. He is actually Choice Scarf, so... But yeah, unfortunately, the Healing Wish is just going to make it so that he can't win anyway, so... Yeah, GG in that regard. Oh, and Silent Waltz is going to be very petty about it as well. Now, he could get frozen by Ice Beam, but I think it is very unlikely that that'll happen. Yeah, and there's the match. But yeah, well played Silent Waltz. And yeah, Sificon unfortunately just got a kind of brutal matchup for this particular Dragon team. Or for his particular Water team. Still played well in spite of that, but unfortunately he just wasn't able to get the Hatchard Attack going in time. And Silent Waltz was able to utilize his Latias and bring Gudra back to full HP. So, yeah, very unfortunate, but it is what it is. And the Dragonite was actually very crucial this game, as it did force out the otherwise scary Hisuian Samurott from doing what it usually does. So, yeah, well played Silent Waltz. And now let's move on to the final match of Week 5. As we see LBN versus Maki. Maki opting for a relatively standard ground team, as LBN is going to opt for a Hisuian Gudra or MWP style Steel team. So I don't really have any comments to say about either team, so let's just see how this match goes. We're going to see Heatran lead into the Excadrill, as Heatran misses and overheats. I think that may be Choice Scarf, as we see the Earthquake from Maki's Clodsire do get quite a decent amount to Hisuian Gudra. Excadrill is going to come in, but sadly it will get its Choice Band removed, which is actually very bad for Maki, as we are going to see the Earthquake come through, but unfortunately not do anything to the Skarmory. Skarmory is going to be swapped out for Iron Treads, who's going to threaten out Landorus. Yep. Landorus is definitely probably going to be confirmed. Life Orb, as we see the eject button removed from Hippowdon, denying Excadrill free entry into the team. Excadrill or Landorus, to be honest. As we see Landorus get Raw brought in against the Skarmory. Focus Blast being used, but not connecting, as Skarmory will successfully get a Whirlwind off and bring in the Great Tusk. Landorus is going to be brought in again, as Body Press is used unsuccessfully into the Skarmory. Gholdengo is going to be brought in, revealing its Balloon, as Gravity is used. Hisuian Gudra is going to be brought in, but it will get KO'd by the powerful Earth Power, as I believe that is Choice Scarf. Heatran, yeah, Maki is respecting the potential for it to be Choice Scarf, as the Overheat is used and fails to KO the Clodsire, as we are going to see Iron Chest come back out. Recovery is used by the Clodsire to keep it at full HP, but Hippowdon will come in and take the next hit that Iron Treads dishes out. Gholdengo is now going to be brought back in, as a Balloon is still going to be active, as Maki opts to heal their Hippowdon. Excadrill is going to be brought in and unfortunately KO'd, so no graphic Excadrill shenanigans for you, Maki. But we are going to see the Great Tusk come in, and Skarmory is going to pose a massive issue to it, as the Rocky Helmet is going to be successfully removed, making subsequent hits on the physical side, or the contact side really, to be a bit more effective. or less detrimental to the user at least. But we are going to see a little bit of a wet noodle fight as Skarmory uses Whirlwind into the brought in Landorus. Skarmory now getting its roost back and getting its sturdy back, as we do see the gravity get used and Mamoswine is now put in. Skarmory still can't really take a hit from Mamoswine, but it will still opt to stay in and use Body Press, as we do see Landorus come back in. Earth Power, removing Archaludon from the game, as now the double Steel Dragons are gone. Iron Treads, however, is still going to threaten out the Landorus, as we do see Hippowdon come in and easily tank the Ice Spinner. Hippowdon also able to pose a threat to the Iron Treads due to it also having Earthquake, as we do see Landorus get brought in again. Heatran is going to be doubled into by Elbienda, which will force out the Landorus and put Clodsire back in the match. What will Clodsire do? We see Elbienda swap out into Goldenko, and Maki swaps back into Landorus, as Landorus will probably get KO'd by that Make It Rain. And Great Tusk is going to come in. Headlong Rush, and yes, it does ignore the balloon because that's how gravity works. So yeah, Iron Tread is going to be brought in, but it will not be able to tank the Choice Scarf or Great Tusk damage, as we are going to see Skarmory now come in. Skarmory should take at least one hit from it, but we do see him double out into Heatran instead. And no, because he swapped out twice, he was not able to get that to happen. So, yep. Well played, Tamaki. Because LBM was playing his heart out, trying to make sure that Landorus couldn't get those gravities off and try to make the matchup unbearable for him. But unfortunately, Maki was just able to stay strong during the entire time and didn't get impatient and played solidly, as that is typically how this matchup is supposed to go. We have seen this get lost before with really good play, but sadly Maki was not going to let that happen. And yes, that'll be it for the matches. So definitely a very entertaining week. We saw, basically, this was a pretty plain week in terms of teams. I didn't really see anything truly interesting. The Sarah set could have been really interesting, but sadly it was not in the right matchup, sadly. But for the rest of the sets, I don't really think there's a ton of crazy stuff in this week. It was probably the most by the books meta week that we've had so far. We did see normal though, which was very nice, and we saw another Bug team and Bug get a W against the meta type, so that was really cool. But yeah, it was definitely a very interesting, or not really interesting, but this definitely felt like the meta week. This was definitely the meta week outside of the few things that we saw, because typically we have a lot more revelations and stuff. But yeah, we also saw a little bit of a comeback of the Life Orb Battle Bond Greninja, but I don't really think it left that much of a good impression based on what we saw. But yeah, definitely a pretty decent week, very entertaining, and the competition is just looking very good. Seeing a lot of good plays, and a lot of interesting ways to approach matchups as well, as we saw in the Losco game going against the Water team with Toxapex. But yeah, this MPL is going to be a good one. I'm sure I've said that before, but it has so far been very good so far. Nothing too worrisome about the metagame either. Definitely, Dragon definitely seems to be one of the public enemy #1s, but we are seeing a very good meta innovations being used to take care of that type. Dark does seem to be the other big bad, but Dark is also Dark has some weaknesses. The problem with Dark is that Greninja and or not really Greninja, but Meowscarada is just a very obnoxious mon for a lot of types to deal with. It's a very dangerous mon for water to deal with. It's a very dangerous mon for ground to deal with. It just hits two matchups that are against really good types, that would otherwise be able to keep it in check, like how water and ground usually keep dragon in check for somewhat. So yeah, it's definitely a bit annoying to watch Dark trying to get away with all the nonsense it does, but I do think that Dark is manageable. It doesn't look too overpowered. And Meowscarada, again, is like a frail attacker, so it's not like it's impossible to deal with. But some teams are going to definitely struggle a little bit with dealing with that mod in particular. But yeah. With that being said, I will see you guys hopefully in the mid-season video. And with that, I hope you all have a great day. Take care.